The room is dim, lit only by the pale blue light of a phone screen. It's past midnight, but your thumb keeps moving. Swipe, scroll, tap, repeat. Faces, headlines, laughter, pain, outrage, beauty, all flickering by in less than a second. You pause on something, a sunset, a quote, a stranger's confession, and for a moment, it feels like it might mean something. But before the thought can form, your thumb moves again. You don't even decide to do it. It just happens. Hours pass like this, lost in the glow. Outside, the world sleeps. Inside, you're wide awake but not alive. There's a strange hollowness growing behind the stimulation. It's not boredom exactly, it's something deeper, quieter, a kind of absence. But instead of facing it, you scroll again. Somewhere between one post and the next, you forget what you were even looking for. You don't know when it started feeling this way, the compulsive pull, the need to see something new, as if the next scroll might finally give you the feeling you've been missing. We tell ourselves it's harmless, that we're just keeping up, staying informed, staying connected. But maybe that's the illusion. Because for every scroll that fills your eyes, something empties inside you. Every burst of stimulation replaces what used to be silence. And silence is where your emotions used to live. You used to feel things deeply. A song could break you. A look could move you. But now, everything flashes by so fast, nothing has time to sink in. You see hundreds of faces a day and feel almost nothing at all. The strange thing is, the more we consume, the less we experience. It's not that life stopped being beautiful, it's that we stopped being sensitive to it. Each notification, each new clip, each scroll keeps us just busy enough to avoid the ache of stillness. Carl Jung once wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Maybe this, the endless scroll, the numbing rhythm of constant input, is our modern absurdity. We are not afraid of missing out. We are afraid of meeting ourselves. So we fill the silence. We bury it under movement, under noise, under pixels and dopamine. But beneath it all, something ancient is starving. The human heart was never built for this level of stimulation. It was built for slowness, for moments that take time to ripen into feeling. When everything is instant, nothing means anything. When everything is available, nothing feels sacred. The phone becomes both the escape and the cage, a small screen offering infinite worlds, but none that feel real. Sometimes, when the battery runs low or the signal fades, there's a flicker of clarity. A sudden awareness of how quiet the room is, how strange it feels to just be there without something to touch, to scroll, to consume. That quiet is uncomfortable, almost painful, because it's the sound of your own mind returning. And in that moment, you realize, the thing you've been trying to escape isn't boredom. It's yourself. We scroll because we don't know what else to do with our longing. We scroll because we mistake stimulation for connection. We scroll because we're afraid to stop, afraid that if we do, the emptiness will swallow us whole. But what if the emptiness isn't our enemy? What if it's the doorway back to feeling? This is the quiet tragedy of our time. A generation more connected than ever, yet starved for meaning, more informed than ever, yet lost for wisdom, more stimulated than ever, yet unable to feel. And the cruelest part is, it doesn't feel like numbness. It feels like noise. It feels like movement. It feels like living. But it's not. It's just motion without depth. Somewhere inside, a voice whispers, faint, almost forgotten, "Remember when you used to feel? When a simple moment could fill you with wonder. When you didn't need to capture life to experience it. When the world didn't have to entertain you to feel alive." The illusion is seductive. It promises you connection, escape, comfort. But what it really offers is distraction from the truth. The truth that your feelings, your real, raw, unfiltered emotions, can't be found in pixels. They live in silence. In boredom. In the stillness we've trained ourselves to avoid. We scroll to feel alive, but somewhere along the way we forgot how to actually live. We live in an age where silence has become unbearable. The moment it arrives, we reach for the nearest screen, to fill it, to kill it, to drown it. What we call connection has become a stream of fragmented attention, each fragment demanding just enough of us to distract but never enough to transform. And so, we scroll through the world, through other people's lives, through ideas, faces, jokes, tragedies, until all of it starts to blend into one endless blur. The paradox is clear. We are overstimulated and undernourished. Surrounded by information, yet starved for wisdom. Our minds are full, but our hearts are empty. Psychologically, it's simple, but devastating. Every flicker, every notification, every swipe triggers a hit of dopamine, the brain's seek and reward chemical. It's not joy. It's anticipation. The same chemical that drives addiction. The more you chase it, the less sensitive you become to it. The same content that once felt exciting becomes flat. You start needing more, faster, louder, newer. The cycle tightens. You no longer scroll because you want to. You scroll because you can't stop. The irony is that the brain's design for survival, to seek novelty, to explore the unknown, has been hijacked by algorithms. They give us the illusion of exploration without the substance of experience. And so, you chase variety endlessly, but nothing ever satisfies. It's like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. It feels like you're consuming life, but you're only consuming shadows of it. Nietzsche warned of this long before screens existed. He spoke of the human tendency to fill the void of meaning with stimulation, with distraction, with noise. When we lose our why, we drown in how much? When meaning fades, pleasure and novelty take its place. But Nietzsche also warned that this replacement creates a kind of inner poverty. He called it the last man, the one who no longer seeks greatness, only comfort, the one who confuses ease for happiness. Look around, and you'll see it everywhere, millions of glowing faces in the dark, comfortable, entertained, and quietly hollow. Carl Jung understood another layer of this, that overstimulation isn't just physical, but spiritual. When he wrote about the shadow, he meant the parts of ourselves we refuse to look at: pain, fear, emptiness, desire, grief. These emotions demand attention, silence, reflection, all the things our culture avoids. Scrolling becomes a form of denial, a psychological defense. Every new post, every new clip, is a small act of repression. We drown the voice inside us before it can speak. We escape not because we want to, but because we can't bear to stay. And yet, the more we escape, the more the shadow grows. You can suppress pain, but not erase it. It lingers beneath the surface, waiting for stillness to resurface. That's why the moment your phone dies or the Wi-Fi cuts out, you feel an unexpected panic. Not boredom, but confrontation. The mind, stripped of distraction, suddenly faces itself. Every unprocessed emotion returns. The scrolling was never about content, it was about avoidance. Alan Watts often said, "The more we try to run away from suffering, the more we suffer." This is the paradox of overstimulation. The more we chase constant pleasure, the less we feel. Because emotion, real emotion, needs contrast. Joy exists only next to sorrow. Presence exists only next to silence. By flooding the senses, we flatten the spectrum of feeling. Everything becomes muted, even happiness. We are not made numb by tragedy, but by excess. The human nervous system can only feel deeply when it's allowed to rest. When there is no pause, there is no depth. Think of music. Without silence between notes, it's just noise. The same is true for life. The silence between experiences is where emotion breathes. But our digital age has erased that silence, filling every gap with stimulation. And so, we live in a world where everything happens, and nothing matters. Viktor Frankl, a man who found meaning inside a concentration camp, wrote that meaning is the primary human motivation, not pleasure, not power. Meaning is born from engagement, from suffering, from purpose. But meaning requires space, the space to reflect, to interpret, to feel. When every moment is consumed by scrolling, there's no room for meaning to emerge. You can't hear the quiet call of purpose over the noise of constant novelty. Our emotional numbness is not a disease, it's a defense mechanism. The brain shuts down its sensitivity to protect itself from overstimulation. What feels like apathy is actually exhaustion. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are overstimulated, overexposed, and emotionally overloaded. And the tragedy is that you think you're disconnected because you're not trying hard enough, when in truth, you're disconnected because you've tried too hard to feel everything all at once. We were never designed to witness thousands of lives, tragedies, and emotions every single day. Our empathy wasn't built for this scale. When every scroll shows another war, another heartbreak, another outrage, the psyche can't hold it all. So it stops trying. It stops feeling. It numbs. Not out of coldness, but out of self-preservation. Nietzsche once wrote, "If you gaze long enough into the abyss gazes back." But today, we don't gaze into the abyss, we scroll through it. And every flick of the thumb is another step away from our own humanity. Because feeling, real feeling, requires stillness. It requires facing what's uncomfortable, the boredom, the emptiness, the ache of being human. And yet that's the very thing we're running from. Overstimulation, then, is not a modern inconvenience, it's a spiritual crisis. It's the disconnection of the soul from the body, the self from experience. You can't find meaning in a life lived entirely in fragments. You can't feel alive when you never stop to inhabit the moment you're in. The brain may crave stimulation, but the soul craves stillness. And until we learn to honor that stillness, we will remain trapped in the noise, mistaking intensity for intimacy, mistaking motion for meaning. The truth is simple, but it hurts. You are not empty. You are simply buried beneath 1,000 layers of noise. Beneath all the scrolling, the seeking, the endless waves of stimulation, there is still a pulse, faint, waiting, patient. The part of you that still wants to feel, to love, to live with depth. It hasn't died. It's just waiting for you to be quiet long enough to hear it again. There comes a point where the noise stops working. The videos, the endless feed, the constant stream of content, it all begins to blur into a colorless fog. The excitement fades. The dopamine rushes lose their flavor. You scroll, but you feel nothing. And in that emptiness, something strange begins to happen. You start to notice the silence behind the noise. You start to sense that maybe, just maybe, what you've been running from all along wasn't boredom, but truth. It begins in small, fragile moments. You put your phone down and suddenly realize how quiet the room is. The silence feels heavy, almost suffocating at first. It's the weight of everything you've been avoiding. Every emotion you've numbed. Every thought you've postponed. Every part of yourself that you silenced under the hum of endless stimulation. You want to reach for the screen again. The reflex is instant, but this time, you pause. You let the stillness breathe. At first, it feels unbearable. Because silence reveals. It shows you everything you've been hiding. The loneliness that lives beneath the chatter. The exhaustion behind the smile. The ache of a life lived at the surface. You start to see how much of your time was spent escaping yourself, not because you hated who you were, but because you never gave yourself the chance to listen. The silence begins to speak, softly at first, like a whisper. It doesn't condemn you. It calls you home. This is the reawakening, the moment your sensitivity begins to return. But it doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves, tender and raw. You begin to notice things you'd forgotten how to see, the way the morning light spills across the floor, the sound of rain against the window, the quiet rhythm of your own breath. These things were always there, but overstimulation blinded you to them. Now, stripped of noise, you feel their weight again. You feel life again. Viktor Frankl once wrote that those who have a why can bear almost any how. In the silence, you begin to rediscover your why. You remember that meaning isn't found in the next post or the next distraction, but in presence, in being deeply attuned to the moment you are in. Meaning requires attention. It requires patience. It requires the courage to stand still in a world that worships movement. The stillness you feared becomes your teacher. Carl Jung believed that wholeness comes not from running from the darkness within, but from integrating it. To reclaim your feelings, you must face your shadow, the boredom, the fear, the loneliness you buried under the scroll. They are not your enemies. They are your signals. They are the parts of you calling to be seen, to be healed, to be felt. The moment you stop resisting them, something extraordinary happens. They begin to lose their power over you. The silence that once frightened you becomes sacred. Alan Watts described this transformation beautifully. He said, "You can't have life without death, or pleasure without pain, or up without down." In our pursuit of constant stimulation, we try to have one side of the coin: pleasure without presence, excitement without stillness, happiness without depth. But life is a rhythm, not a highlight reel. It expands and contracts. It breathes. And when you stop trying to hold your breath in the name of productivity or distraction, you finally begin to live in sync with it again. So you start to slow down. You walk without your headphones. You sit without reaching for your phone. You let the quiet moments exist without trying to fill them. At first, they feel empty, but over time, they begin to fill themselves. The emptiness was never a void. It was space, the space where emotion grows, where joy takes root, where awe begins to whisper. The rediscovery of silence is not about rejecting the modern world or abandoning technology. It's about remembering your power to choose. To choose depth over distraction. To choose feeling over noise. To choose to be present in your own life, rather than a spectator of everyone else's. Presence is rebellion in a world built on attention theft. Stillness is strength in a culture that confuses rest with laziness. When you stop feeding on constant stimulation, you begin to taste the richness of simplicity again. You notice how your mind becomes clearer, your emotions sharper, your empathy deeper. You laugh not because something is viral, but because it truly moves you. You listen not to respond, but to understand. You feel boredom and realize it's not emptiness, it's the soil of creativity. You feel sadness and realize it's not weakness, it's proof that you're alive. You feel love, real love, and realize it was never gone. It was just drowned out by noise. In time, you begin to understand that numbness was never the absence of feeling. It was the overload of unprocessed sensations. Your system was simply trying to protect itself. The antidote is not more stimulation, but less. It's the gentle act of subtraction, removing the unnecessary until what's essential remains. And what remains is something you might have forgotten existed: peace. Not the dull kind that comes from avoidance, but the grounded kind that comes from alignment. You no longer need the world to shout to feel alive. You no longer need the next thing to feel enough. You begin to trust the quiet again. You begin to trust yourself again. This is the reawakening of silence, the rebirth of sensitivity. It's not dramatic. It doesn't happen with fireworks or grand epiphanies. It happens in moments: the pause before a breath, the softness of light, the stillness between sounds. It happens when you finally stop trying to feel everything and allow yourself to feel one thing deeply. And somewhere in that quiet, you realize something profound. You were never broken. You were never numb beyond repair. You were simply overwhelmed. You were trying to feel everything all at once, when the human heart was only ever meant to feel deeply, not constantly. You were never meant to feel everything all the time, only deeply when it truly matters. Morning light seeps through the curtains, soft, golden, and unhurried. The phone rests nearby, silent for once. No notifications, no vibrations, no urgent demands for attention. For the first time in a long while, the quiet feels different. Not suffocating. Not empty. Just there, like an old friend who waited patiently for you to notice them again. You breathe, slowly. You feel your body settle into the moment. Nothing spectacular is happening. And yet, for the first time, it feels like something real is. This is what presence feels like. Not the absence of distraction, but the return of yourself. After years of noise, the world begins to move in rhythm with you again. You notice the small things that stimulation once buried: the smell of morning coffee, the warmth of sunlight, the hum of life unfolding around you. None of these moments would ever go viral. They won't be liked or shared or saved. But they are what life is made of. When you stop running from silence, you realize it was never your enemy. Silence was the place where your emotions waited to be rediscovered. It was the mirror you refused to look into, not because it was empty, but because it was honest. It showed you who you had become in all your running, your scrolling, your distraction. But it also shows you who you could still become. Someone awake, someone aware, someone alive. Carl Jung once wrote that only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. You start to understand what that means. The same silence that once felt unbearable is now sacred. The same solitude that once frightened you now feels like peace. The same boredom that once drove you to your phone now feels like space, the soil where real thoughts and real emotions grow. Life was never supposed to be a constant high. It was always meant to move between presence and absence, sound and quiet, stimulation and stillness. When you honor both, you begin to live in balance. Modern life won't slow down for you. The noise won't stop. The world will keep spinning faster. New apps, new trends, new ways to keep you hooked. But the difference now is that you don't have to participate in every rhythm. You can choose yours. You can step away from the flood and still exist, still thrive, still connect. The world will always offer you more content, more distraction, more stimulation, but your peace depends on your ability to say, enough. Presence, then, is not a luxury. It's a discipline, a form of resistance. It's the art of reclaiming your attention in a world built to steal it. Every time you put down your phone, every time you choose to be fully where you are, you're taking back something sacred. Your time, your mind, your life. You start to see that attention is not just focus, it's love. Whatever you give your attention to, you give your life to. Viktor Frankl spoke of finding meaning not through ease, but through responsibility, through engaging deeply with life, even when it hurts. To live meaningfully is to participate, to feel, to choose. When you give your full attention to something, a conversation, a task, a moment, you transform it from ordinary to sacred. Attention is what turns time into experience. Without it, everything passes by unnoticed. With it, even the simplest moments become profound. So you begin to integrate this awareness into your life. You start small, leaving your phone behind when you walk, letting boredom exist without rushing to fill it, listening when someone speaks without planning what to say next. These are quiet acts, invisible to the world, but they build something monumental inside you. They rebuild your sensitivity. They reawaken your humanity. You find yourself drawn back to simple things. A real conversation, a walk under the trees, the sound of rain. You start feeling again. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Your emotions return in full color. Joy feels lighter. Sadness feels cleaner. Even pain feels more alive, less unbearable. Life begins to taste like something again. And when you return to the digital world, because you will, you do so differently. You don't open your phone out of hunger anymore. You open it out of choice. You see the screen for what it is, a tool, not a home. A window, not the world. You scroll, maybe, but you don't lose yourself in it. You don't chase the next hit of stimulation because you've remembered what true feeling costs, and what it's worth. You'll still feel the pull sometimes, that itch to escape the quiet, to distract yourself from the weight of being human. But now, you'll recognize it for what it is, the mind's old reflex, not your truth. You'll remember that silence is not the absence of life. It's the presence of it. This new awareness doesn't make life perfect. You'll still get restless. You'll still feel lost sometimes. But you'll know where to return, to stillness, to presence, to the grounding rhythm of your own breath. You'll remember that peace isn't found in escape, but in attention. And that meaning is not discovered in pixels, but in presence. So when you find yourself scrolling again, chasing that flicker of stimulation, pause. Look around. Listen. Feel the world as it is, not as a feed of endless fragments. The light, the air, the silence, they're waiting for you. Always have been. You reach for your phone once more. The screen lights up, glowing softly in your hand. But this time, something in you hesitates. You look at the light for a moment, then turn it off. The room darkens, and for a heartbeat, there is nothing. No noise, no motion, no rush. Just stillness. And in that stillness, the world feels suddenly vast again. When you stop scrolling, you don't lose the world. You find it again, right where you left it.